I'm going to show you how to make this simple jig in about 15 minutes that's going to save you a ton of time. Now, the traditional way to do this is to use a piece of wood as a straight edge, or if you're lucky enough to have a track saw, you can do repeatable cuts with a built-in stop on a table. But I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you don't have those things. Let's say you need to make repeatable cuts on a large panel with a circular saw, or even multiple panels. We need to create a physical stop for the saw to travel along. Now this is going to function much like a fence would on a table saw, except for moving the workpiece across the blade. We're going to be moving the blade across the workpiece. So for most projects, especially cabinets, you're going to have to make the same cut a number of times. Let's say you have to create 2 sides to a cabinet and you have 3 to 4 of those things. So that means you're going to have to do between 6 and 8 of those repeatable cuts. Now the time spent building this jig is going to be well worth your time, because any time spent correcting those little mistakes is going to add up a lot in the project. So for this jig, you're going to need 4 pieces of material. Now the first 2 pieces of scrap need to be longer than the crosscut that you're making. And the next pieces are preferably going to be as long as the panel or slightly longer. So for my jig, I use 4 clamps to secure everything down. If you only have 2 clamps, that can still work, but ideally 4 are better. I also use pocket screws, but again, if you don't have pocket screws, you can easily work around this by using a piece of wood to attach the 2 pieces, or using any joinery that you feel comfortable with. I really like pocket screws for these types of really quick in the shop jig projects where I'm not too worried about the longevity. I just need something that works and holds a couple pieces of wood together quickly. So first, you want to determine how long your crosscut is going to be. Next, you're going to need to mark your cut line and then figure out the distance between your base plate and where the saw kerf is actually going to be. So depending on whether you're making the cut on the right side of the saw or the left side, it's going to make a difference in the measurements. So be sure that you're taking the measurements from the side of the base plate that you're actually going to be cutting. So for most projects, the accuracy might not be important as the precision or the repeatability. And by accuracy, I mean if your part in the plans measures 32 and 1/16 of an inch, it's not going to really matter if it's 32 and 2/16 of an inch. Now, your project may be different and the accuracy might be super important. For the cabinets I was building, I wasn't that concerned if I was going to be cutting my pieces to 32 and an eighth or 32 and a quarter. The most important part was that all the components were going to be the same exact measurement at the end. So if you want to get an accurate measurement from the base plate of your saw to the actual kerf, there's a really easy way to do that. You can clamp a straight edge to a piece of scrap plywood and make a cut along that edge. Now, without removing the clamps, take the measurement from the edge of that clamp piece to where the cut was. That's going to be exactly the width between your base plate and what the saw leaves. So once you've marked the line where your fence needs to be, clamp the fence to your workpiece and attach it with screws. So it's crucial to get this part as accurate as you can. You can always go back and adjust it, but if you're off by a 1/16 of an inch, every subsequent cut is also going to be off. So make sure to get this as accurate as possible. Now clamp the piece of scrap that's going to be riding the edge of the opposite side. So for this piece, attach it from the top of the 2 parallel pieces with screws. This sets the flush with your panel you're cutting and lets it run along the edge. If you need to adjust the length of this crosscut, or you have other components you need to cut, you can simply just unscrew this piece and reattach it. I hope you can see how easy it is to make this jig and make repeatable cuts with a circular saw and just a couple pieces of scrap and some screws. Take the time to set up this jig for your next project and you'll be happy you did. Thanks for watching.